Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Palermo. It's my co-host, Tom Delisle, and we're here for yet another version of the Lawrence History Project. And we'll be taking a trip, interesting trip into the past, into yesteryear, and just to remind you young people what life was like before you were here. And we're going to go back probably as far as 100 years and bring us up to the present moment. Now, my co-host, Tom Delisle here, is a photographer and a true artist and a great chronicler of Lawrence events, present and past. So what do you think, Tom? You ready to show?
Yeah,
show
ready
this
to
stuff?
show. Yeah.
Okay. And we all want to give a special thanks to the Lawrence Archives for permission to use some of this stuff. And if you like this stuff, you have any comments, you can just email me if you like. Mark Palermo, MarkPalermo, markpalermo@gmail.com. Like to know what you think. I hope we didn't offend anybody. It happens sometimes. But anyway, here it is. And without further ado, here's our series of pictures for today. Recognize that, Tom?
Yeah, that's a trolley. I think it used to take some of the mill workers to Salisbury Beach back in the day.
My God.
I don't think it wasn't, I think it made stops along the way. There obviously wasn't a trolley all the way from Lawrence to the coast.
Well, you know what? I understand. They used to go all the way up to the White Mountains. You could take a trolley from Lawrence all the way to the White Mountains or to the
Wow.
beach.
I didn't know
People
that.
went to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So maybe
it's
there
pretty
was a
cool.
mistake.
It looks like fun, too.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And everybody's dressed up.
Look at it, in the old days. Isn't it interesting how people used to dress up, huh? Yeah? It's like everything was a special event.
There was. Even in the 70s, in the Common, some of the old timers, they'd be sitting there with their suits.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
old Italian gentlemen, and they were gentlemen,
Oh, yeah.
and they carried
Class.
themselves that way. It was different. So
I've
that was
always-
probably in the 20s, but
I've always said elegance is going to make a comeback. It's going to come back really strong. People will rediscover it. They'll think they're discovering something new,
right.
but it's something very old, elegance. And it's coming back. That's my prediction. But yeah, there's something about an elderly gentleman. Well, wait a minute. I'm talking about elderly gentlemen as if they're
Our age.
Yes, I have to remind myself. I still think I'm 45, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's something very cool about elegantly dressed men and women that are of age. Okay, next, please. This picture speaks 1,000 words.
Yes. Again, all these are from the archives, and the strike, probably 1912 or the 1919 strike. There was one then also. Maybe this was just a vigilante type. They had the military there with bayonets, but that looks like the real deal.
A lot of townies were around to help
Townies.
them out. Harvard boys, Harvard football players.
Mm-hmm.
All the yokels came out to help the police
Mm-hmm.
put down these. I like the expression on the guy's face.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you got a bayonet, go ahead. What else are you going to take from me? That's when people are dangerous. When you've taken everything from them, and you're going to push them some more. You better be careful. You better back off.
Yes.
As they learned from that 1912 strike. Okay, next, please. This has to be 1912, huh?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
What does it say? Free for children only. It's like dinner. It looks like a soup kitchen.
Yeah. Soup kitchen, possibly, probably. And we know that a lot of the kids were shipped out, I think, to like Barry, Vermont, I think
Barry,
you said.
Vermont. The Italians sent them up to Barry, Vermont. Barry, Vermont is famous for their stoneworks,
Right.
cemetery graves and monuments and stuff. That's what they make.
The
And
granite
they
quarry.
used the granite quarry, enormous, one of the largest in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a lot of Italians working up there. So they sent them up there. Okay, next, please. The first theater in the world built for talking pictures. Wow, the city of Lawrence for its Centennial Capitol Theater. Who knew, huh?
Who knew?
When we were in high school, it was just a ruin.
Right, right.
Remember-
It had become passé.
It held on. You know, they all died like once television came in the early 50s. Most of them. Some of them held on. I think the Palace Theater held on in the 70s, mid 70s. But after TV knocked them right out. It did to cassettes what MP3s did, like to cassettes. It just made them so redundant. But it was just a pile of rubbish. Remember, it was one of those buildings that was just begging to be knocked down. Remember, like when in high school, they hang around
Yeah,
there? So
it was never opened when we were kids.
I think
I
so,
mean, the
yeah.
Broadway
it just
Palace.
lay there rotting for 20 years, and then somebody took it down and made it. There's a parking lot there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything has a beginning and an end.
Lifespan.
Yeah, lifespan. And you see that. But it was the first theater in the world that was equipped for sound.
Equipped.
I mean, some of the others maybe had sound, but this one was built specifically.
Built
That's the
in.
way I take it.
Right.
They
Exactly.
probably had built-in a speaker system
Mhm.
for sound. You know, my mother told them, and they came in about 1930. My mother would have been 8 years old. And she told me, when they called them the talkies then. You remember that?
Talkie-
The old
oh, yeah,
people called them the
talkies.
talkies. So the first time we went to see a talkie, it was almost a spiritual experience. We were amazed. It was shocking because it was new technology. But just after a while, after a year or two, you get used to it. You don't even think anything of it.
Exactly.
And I think that's true of today too.
Mhm.
We're gonna like driverless cars. I understand they have them in California. I haven't seen one yet. Have you?
No.
We will
we
sooner or
will,
later. It's
yeah.
coming, but
Sooner or
it's going to
later.
freak you out.
Mhm.
And sooner or later, it'll be the most normal thing in the world. That's the way it is with technology. Hard to believe that just talking pictures were once like that. Okay, next, please. Well, we recognize that very well.
Yeah, the old alma mater, Central Catholic,
Central
the
Catholic High School.
admin building,
Yeah.
which is long gone. It's expanded quite a bit, obviously, from that. That was what it looked like when we were there.
I believe.
Class of 68.
I think they kind of built that themselves.
The Maris brothers.
Yeah, I think they built that. That was the first Central Catholic, I think. I think they built that themselves.
Mhm.
And it was old, even when we were there. It was
Right.
old and decrepit. I remember they had a mainframe computer. It was the size of a whole room. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Just to do the attendance.
The attendance.
It's a mainframe. It looked like an IBM, it's like
Supercomputer
spaceship,
nowadays.
something from 2001, Space Odyssey.
Hell.
And all they did was the attendance on 1,000 kids. But back in those days, that was pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably do that with a handheld computer now. Okay, next, please. Well, this is very evocative of the old days. Looks like 1940s.
40s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shift change from the mills,
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. They're dressing a lot better than they did back on the strike days, because there was a
Oh, yeah.
third strike, I think, in the 30s.
Oh, yeah.
So it
yeah.
looks like they've made some progress.
Nobody I ever knew worked in a mill. Wanted their kids to work in a mill.
Mhm.
So they're only good for a generation or two, especially
Right.
textiles. Textiles is a lousy, crappy industry. They don't pay much. It's hard work. You're working around hazardous materials. So although I used to work on them when I was a kid, Malden Mills,
Malden, yeah. I worked there part of one summer.
Lawrence Textile Shrinking Company.
Mhm.
That was horrendous, working around shrinking, which means you're breathing in vapors, solvents.
Mhm.
I remember one job I had, Tom. It was in Reed Meredith Textiles.
Mhm.
And I would have to take these samples and a cloth sack of samples and put them into a vat of dye. And they gave me gloves that would reach up to here.
Oh.
The gloves sometimes they would leak. After a while, I was just being a young 19-year-old macho man.
Right.
I don't need these gloves. The hell with these gloves. I took them off, and I would put my whole arms into the vat of dye. Well, I look at it, my body's covered with liver spots.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
got liver spots everywhere.
Catches up with you.
I said, Jesus, was it the stupid dyes? that I was exposed to back then.
Mhm.
God only knows. Well, I'm 72 years old. With the grace of God, I'm still here. So maybe my liver is working
Right.
overtime to cleanse all this stuff. But you don't.
Detox it.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, yeah. You worked in Malden Mills, didn't you? Sunday cleanup.
A summer cleanup, yeah. Going into those large machines that were bigger than this room.
Oh
It was
my
like being
God.
in a submarine.
Did you have to crawl into the vats?
Not into the vats, but you had to crawl into these small doors, tight spaces. They gave you, it would be like a garden rake, a small rake, to get all the wool or the fibers that had collected at the end
Yeah.
of the rolls all year.
Oh yeah.
And it shut down for the 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and you'd have to break all that stuff
yeah.
down.
I think I was working on the Sunday cleanup crew for a while, and I think they gave me a little cheap $1 to a face mask. Probably being macho man again, I probably said I don't need no stinking face mask. I was probably breathing that stuff.
Right. Oh,
That's probably why
absolutely.
I have asthma
Yeah.
to this day.
But that was a rite of passage.
Well-
Growing up in Lawrence and working in Malden Mills, that was just about a rite of passage at some point.
It solidified your resolve. Get an education.
Right.
I heard the call loud and clear. Wow. Okay, next, please. Oh, and there's so much can be said about this. Ralph Fasanella, his portrait of the Lawrence strikers in 1912. And Fasanella was he was born in the early part of the 20th century to Italian immigrants, the Bronx, and
In the Bronx?
in the Bronx, yeah. His mother worked in a clothing factory. His father was an iceman, and he followed his father around on his ice route, delivering ice to people. And then he got in trouble, I guess. You know, they were poor. He ended up on the street, no parental supervision because the parents were working so hard,
Right.
and ended up in reform school. And he ended up very embittered from the experience. He said, in his words, I was reading about this, in his words, the priests were abusing me like a girl, which obviously different language, but we know what that means.
Right.
He
Terrible.
said it served to even solidify even more my disrespect for authority. Because his mother, even though she was working unskilled labor, she was very well read and very articulate, and she instilled in him a desire for social justice, a feeling for social justice, and working for the underdog. So he went off to Spain, fought in Spain in the 1930s against Franco, as a lot of young Americans did. You know about the Abraham Lincoln Brigade?
Abraham Lincoln Brigade.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think I might have read as many as 30,000 Americans.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
quite a few. Quite
Yeah.
a few that went over.
I lived in Madrid for a few years, and in the 70s, late 70s, and the old it's hard as an American to go anywhere where you appreciate it anymore.
Right.
But there was such appreciation because of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Madrid never lost to the fascists. They were bombed mercilessly. The fascists bombed. It's one of the first times they actually purposely bombed civilian populations. And Franco's troops were on the edge of the city, and they were pressing in. And at the last minute, the Abraham Lincoln Brigade came and rescued the city. So the older people were eternally grateful to Americans. The Abraham Lincoln, and they were all volunteers. It's like Ralph Fasanella.
And Canadian, well, a lot of nationalities.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Americans were the Lincoln Brigade, obviously, but quite a few countries participated.
Yeah, they were referred to as the International Brigade.
International, yes.
Yeah. People are very, nowadays governments are so large, it's hard to be sentimental. Wars seem to be corporate wars, deep state wars. But then, in those days, it seemed to be personal with people. It was
Right.
personal. I've got to, as a man, I have to do something. The world is going to get swallowed up by evil. And a lot of them never came back.
Yeah. It's happening in Ukraine now.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
with those numbers, just you hear about handfuls, individuals, but some are
Individuals,
still
yeah.
answering the call.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
Fasanella, he was one of the more important primitivists.
Later in life, he was disappointed in union. He was a union organizer, but he became disappointed and disenchanted with the union movement. And I can understand why. I was a vice president of my own local. And I have to say, I was a union member most of my life. But at some point, they seemed to have lost their mission, their solidarity. More so nowadays. At the end of my term, I couldn't even get people to go out and hold a sign, really. It's just the older people that would do it. And I think it'll come back, though. I think there'll have to be an international union movement. And nowadays, with communication, it could probably happen, because business has gone international, and there's no reason labor can't do it either. When there's a lot of smart people around that can make it happen. And you could make a lot of arguments against unionism. I'm very well aware of some of the abuses of them. But let's remember, child labor, 40-hour work week, 5-day work week, overtime, Social Security, end to child labor. That all came about as a result of unions. So, even my father. My father was a real Republican. You know him.
Oh yeah.
Old timer.
Old
He worked in management, but he said, I hate to see unions die out completely because you need them just to balance things off.
Right.
I would agree with that.
Well, now Amazon and Starbucks.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Talk about grassroots union.
Yeah. I think it's going to happen. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. Okay, next, please. Oh, another one by Fastenella. Yeah. He actually did 3. Yeah. As I said, he was disenchanted with the union movement later on, but they kind of recognized him before he died, and there was kind of a revival in his work. And in Lawrence here, this was these paintings were met with a lot of fanfare. He became almost a household word back in the 70s. It's mostly forgotten now, but I believe there's possibly enough material here to do a show on him.
Yeah, and I know at the Essex Company, they have a bookstall, and you can get a poster of those paintings. Of those, maybe 2 by 3 feet. But anybody interested?
I heard he did 25 paintings while he was living in an $18 a week room at the YMCA.
Whoa!
So I read on Wikipedia. That's not 100% accurate all the time, but that's what I read last night when I was doing a little research on him. Okay, next, please. Oh, here we are. For the progress of the human race, we have jails, gallows, guillotines, month juice. What in the world is that? And electric chairs for the people who pay to keep the subjects to kill them when they revolt against Wood, William Wood, owner of the American Willen, and others, czars of capitalism. Rise, slaves of the world. No gods, no masters, one for all for one. That's showing union solidarity. Of course, that is from Marx at the end there. There were a lot of good people that were communists until, of course, news about Stalin came out in the 50s. And even before that, even Ronald Reagan was flirting with communism when he was young until he found out more about them. And this is just another domination system. But the world really, once Stalin's crimes came out, people really woke up to the evils of communism. But you can understand why they would, in those days, before everything came out about them, what they did in the Ukraine, for example. What Stalin did in the Ukraine, he starved them.
7 million of his own
people.
Yeah.
He had a word for it too.
Did he?
A Russian word I obviously don't know, but death by starvation, and it was sort of like the name of the program. Like D-Day was Operation Overlord.
Yeah.
It was institutionalized statewide. It's 7 million.
It's horrible.
Terrible.
Yeah. Next, please. Oh, now there's an interesting photo here, isn't this? Now, this comes from the archives.
From the archives, yeah. I'm not sure which mill. I think it's one of the carding rooms.
Uh-huh.
And I said, oh, those women look pretty good. I remember Jonas Stunzer told me, he says, Tom, get real. These are models. People don't go into the mills dressed like that. So it was PR. I don't know who they thought they were fooling because, people that work there
They never
PR
saw
for-
anybody that looked like that.
PR for who? Who would want? Well, of course, the women look pretty hot.
Mm-hmm.
I always liked that style, 1920s style, the
20s.
bobs.
The
bob.
flappers.
I thought that was.
Mhm.
I've always to this is way before my time, but I always thought that was really sexy.
Yeah. Stylish.
Oh,
Yeah,
the bobbed
very
hair,
stylish.
the tight skirts. Yeah, well, I
Jazz
still-
age. The jazz
Yeah.
age.
Well, I'm still interested in that stuff at 72. I guess that's a sign of health.
Yeah, those dice haven't finished you off yet. Probably if we connect your liver spots, we'll have the unions arise. Will you connect the dots?
Well, there was quite a communist party presence in the 1912 strike, and it got pretty ugly pretty fast.
Mhm.
So, but the entire idea of the strike, during the up until the 1970s and 80s, if you'd ask an older person in Lawrence, what happened here in 1912, you almost get a standard pat answer. Do you remember what that was?
No.
There was a bunch of commies here, troublemakers.
Oh,
they were
yeah.
stirring up things, and it was just a lot of troublemakers who came into Lawrence, stirring up things. Stirring up things. They're making, $6 a week
Mm-hmm.
for a 50-hour week, and they're trying to cut their pay. So,
Making bricks without straw. Yeah. Going back
But-
there.
yeah, even my father used to say, what are they making $6 a week? And he was a really strong management type, Republican guy. And he said, what are they making $6 a week and they cut their pay? On the other hand, William Wood was the president of the American Woolen Company. And he was vilified. Yeah. But he was in the middle. He had stockholders. It wasn't his mill. It wasn't his own fiefdom. It was a bunch of stockholders that owned the mill, and they demanding profits. So they're pressuring on him to cut costs. And the only way that he says he could cut costs was if he could cut their pay.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to satisfy them, and he's got to satisfy the workers. Well, and that's what he said. He was vilified. He was in the words of the public, and it became a worldwide cause celebre.
Oh, yeah.
And everything. It was the poor people of the world against William Wood,
Mm-hmm.
and he came to a very bad end. Did you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He committed suicide?
That's what
Yeah.
as far as I know, I think he committed suicide.
Mhm.
He really wasn't very old when he died.
No.
He didn't grow up rich like a lot of them did. He was poor. He was a son of Portuguese immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And he started out at the bottom of the mill himself, but he was fiercely ambitious and smart.
Mm-hmm.
And the mill owners, they noticed that, and they promoted him up to the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
And he just made it all the way up. By the time he was a very young man, he was the president of the American Woolen Company, which was really amazing.
That was. He forgot where his roots, though. That's the hubris, when you forget your roots and where you came from.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what?
That's never good.
Life is short. Even if you live to be 100 years,
Mhm.
life is short. You just think what a year is. God gives you so many, 60 or 80 or even 100. There's not much time on the earth. I have always felt that we get drawn into these things, these drives, and we forget who we are. If you could have just remembered, I'm a human being like everybody else. I'm going to be gone. You cut us, we bleed red.
Mhm.
We all have to die. We all suffer. We all had joys and sufferings, and then we're gone. It changes one's view. It's good to keep this stuff in view without being morbid about it. If you keep it in mind, you probably won't get drawn too far into these dramas, other people's dramas. Do you have anything more to add to
Yeah,
that?
I think that the secret of happiness is not having too much or too little. And he started out with with too little. Some point he had too much, and
Yeah.
in the end, it didn't end well for him. He lost his vision.
I think of the Bible, what does it gain a man to, how does that go? what does it gain a man to win the entire world
Yep.
and
And
lose his
lose his soul.
Lose his soul.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you see that? I mean, look at the Hollywood. Look at Elvis Presley. I mean, look at the stuff that was. I mean, starting from poor, from really dirt poor. I mean, the stuff that's supposed to make you happy: power, fame, respect for your
Notoriety.
talents,
Mm-hmm.
sex with hundreds, probably thousands of attractive women,
Mm-hmm.
money, and then he had marries the woman that he loves, and blows it all.
Yeah.
So that was, how old was he when he died? 43?
42, 43.
42.
Early 40s.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Cassie, we'll bring up the next photo now. Oh, the old mill years, huh?
Yes.
You recognize that?
By the Duck Bridge.
The Duck Bridge.
There. And
You know what?
Yeah.
That's very evocative for me because for some reason I remember Dave and I
mm-hmm.
going to work. We were working in it. I was 19 years old, and we walked across that bridge. And I'll still remember it.
Mm-hmm.
It was the day Jack Kerouac died,
Wow.
1969,
Mm-hmm.
and Dave and I were walking across the bridge talking about Kerouac. And we went across to the Ayers Mill, and we had we were working for a labor agency that just send you out on day jobs. I was a college student. I had the afternoon off. They sent us out, and I just walked across there, and I went up the the clock tower, and I could see out all of Lawrence.
Wow.
And I just thought of Kerouac, and I saw this enormous flock of birds, starlings or something. It was October,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going south. And it's just one of those moments that always sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Kerouac.
Nice image.
It's a great. You know, Kerouac is buried about 100 yards from my grandmother in,
Oh, yeah?
in Edson Cemetery. We should go up there sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, if you go to Kerouac's grave, there's like, there's marijuana joints, beer, wine, poems and everything. People leave stuff from him. He was a great writer. But another one that left us very early, he was 47 years old when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the next one, Cassie, please. Composed by an operative. Let me see if I can read some of this. When nature is in the voice of pain, speaks of want and what? Can you see that?
I can't.
Speaks of want and the voice is heard, but heard in vain, as my misfortunes show. It's a poem, and then a blessing of gratefulness, and at the very bottom is pitiful. So sorry to read this. I am an unemployed operative and offer these lines for your notice for sale, hoping at the same time you will purchase one, thus being the only means left to me at present. Written by Thomas Burns, Lawrence, Massachusetts. So this is what hard times is like, young people, if you're watching. This guy, just to try to get a meal, is obviously standing on a street corner somewhere selling his poems. Yeah.
But it survived all these decades.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like Book of Proverbs said, you cast your bread out upon the waters after many days. He probably never got that much return of the bread, but it's still alive. Those words are alive.
It's a
Very
nice
poignant.
It's a nice poem. It's one of those rhyming poems.
Mm-hmm.
In the somebody asked Robert Frost about rhyming poems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of these young poets that they don't believe in rhyming anymore. And Frost said, it's like playing tennis without a net.
Right. Yes. Free verse. Free verse. And talk about a Laurentian, famous Laurentian, too.
Yeah, we should do something. I don't know why we haven't done anything on Robert
On
Frost.
Frost,
There's a lot there.
Him and his wife were co-valedictorians, I think, or his wife was
Were they?
valedictorian.
Yeah. Lawrence High School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. High school
Robert
sweethearts.
Frost. Another one is this guy, Ferdinand de Mara. Do you remember him?
No.
You remember the Great Imposter with Tony Curtis?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
That's Ferdinand de Mara. He went
De
to
Mara.
Central
He went
Catholic.
to
He's a
Central.
Lawrence kid. If you don't know who Ferdinand de Mara is, don't worry. A lot of people don't. But he was called the Great Imposter. He was an imposter. He was a surgeon and a banker and everything.
Yeah.
And he worked out, he was a college president. He worked all these jobs and until they caught wise to him. And then he just went on the lam and worked another one. He spent his life just doing this. And eventually they made a Hollywood movie with Tony Curtis, who
Yeah,
was really
remember
big in the 50s. It was like a really big star. The Great Imposter. So you can probably see it on YouTube. A lot of the old stuff is on YouTube. Probably see it and see what this guy was
Turner
about.
Classic Movies probably has it.
Oh, I bet it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, but
yeah.
doing surgery, I heard he read the night, at least in the movie, he read the surgical text the night before and performed an
He
operation.
was successful.
Yeah. Amazing.
How would you like to be operated on by a guy that just, hey, a lot of them still do probably that.
Right.
Hey, how do I do this? Let me check on YouTube here. Maybe they have it. Well, fake it till you make it. He certainly did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Cassie. And we'll take the next one, please. Now, I'm going to rely on your expertise, Tom.
Oh,
Can you fake? It looks like it's got to be the Lawrence Common.
Yeah, North Lawrence Common there.
Yeah, there's the Civil War
The Civil
monument
War
to the right.
monument off to the right. It may be the World War II monument that's fairly close by to the Civil War one.
Yes. They have the names of all the fallen from Lawrence.
Yes.
In fact, the Campione Common, the Lawrence North Common, is called the Campione Common because of the Campione family who lost 3 sons in World War II in Germany, 1944.
Yeah. 45. I think
Was
it was
it 45?
45
Oh,
because
that's terrible.
VE Day was May 8th, and I think a lot of those guys died in March. It was like the bottom of the 9th.
Oh,
And,
oh my God.
They didn't make it.
I heard a story from a guy. This guy was in the Air Force in World War II. He used to have coffee. I used to see him for coffee all the time. We'd sit together. He told me towards the end of the war, they had sent him on bombing missions, and they'd sent him on to Germany, bomb this, bomb that. And by the time, a lot of the guys were sick of war. And they would send you to the back of the plane to disarm the bomb. You'd have to pull a pin. And a lot of the guys would go to the back of the plane. They wouldn't pull the pin. So the bombs would fall harmlessly until they caught wise to them. And then they wouldn't put up with any of that. Then after they caught wise to them, then the guys would have to go pull the pin and deliver the pin to the pilot. And the pilot would have to show the pins when they got back.
Imagine that.
But it was the senselessness of everybody knew towards 1940. Everybody knew the war was going to be over soon. Senseless killing of people.
And they had bombed, read one time, 30,000 cities.
30,000.
30,000 in one country. That's very thorough.
One of these years, we're going to learn how to live without war. But I don't think we're ready yet. We won't see it, but I believe it's coming. I'm an eternal optimist,
Yes,
don't you?
have to be.
Yeah, you got to be. I hope we're not boring the reader, or the listener and the watcher. I hope we're not boring you. We're just a couple of old guys sharing our philosophy of life. We have learned. I would like to think we have learned a few things in 72 years. You're 72, aren't you?
Next month.
Next month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
next month.
Next month he will be celebrating his 72 trips around the sun. And I will be moving on to my 73rd and still holding on. So with that, I guess, do you have anything else to add, Tom?
No. No,
Okay, my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'll bid you adieu. And we'll see you in another exciting version of the Lawrence History Project coming up soon. Be well, everybody.
Take care.
Take care.